Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Tako Talk. My name is Stephen Tako, author of Motivated to Act and motivational speaker. So, with Tako Talk, I'm always finding people are coming into my life and they're just kind of like coming out of the woodwork because so many people are so interested in helping solve the issue of bullying. We're never going to get rid of bullying. It's always going to exist. It's kind of like human nature, I think, a lot of times. But we can certainly do our best to curb it and stop the vicious cycle of bullying with many people these days. Kids that are going through terrible times, adults that are going through terrible times with bullying. And I've come across Lisa Thomas. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. It's great to have you. We have some mutual friends, and I was just kind of chatting with another motivational speaker, and she mentioned your name, and I was coming down to Orange County today, and here you are in Huntington Beach, California.
Yes.
And so Lisa, I just wanted to say again, thanks for coming on the show, and share with me and our viewers a little bit about why you are involved with the anti-bullying movement. What is that you do that you're making a positive difference in the world?
I actually have a practice where I help people with all types of different stress and different types of ailments. One of them is self-esteem, one of them is bullying, and I believe that I do a little bit different. I do some energy medicine, and we have trauma, and I think that bullying actually causes trauma, and that trauma stays with us and affects our esteem for the rest of our life.
Now, what kind of trauma have you seen?
I've seen anything from bullying to grief to any kind of post-traumatic stress, physical, sexual, emotional abuse, all different types of trauma is what I work on. But bullying is one of the ones that I see.
So let's say there's a teenager out there that's having problems, and they're in the Orange County area. Obviously, a lot of our viewers are all over the world, but how is it that what are you doing to actually help? Is it mostly teens, or do you with adults?
I do with adults, and also adults still have a lot of bullying issues. I just had a client a couple of weeks ago with severe bullying issues that had stayed with her whole life. So what I do that's a little bit different is I'm different than a typical therapist, and I believe that our bodies hold on to that trauma, and every time let's say we went to traditional therapy, our body has a physiological reaction. So every time we think about that event, talk about that event, our body goes into fight or flight mode and has the stress all over again. So what I do that's a little bit different is I actually go in and remove the trauma of the event, so people don't have to ever have to feel that pain ever again.
So how do you do that? If somebody's got a history of being picked on in school or abuse? Do you work with abuse from?
Absolutely.
Do you have like single moms or or battered wives or?
I have clients from 3 months to 85. So they're all types of abuse.
Wow.
And so
okay, so let's say if it's just to pick one. Let's say it's a woman who is she's been married and she's got abuse issues from her husband,
okay,
or a boyfriend, some sort of significant other, and so what kind of lead us through a typical type of session? Is it sessions with you then?
Yes, it's a session.
So lead us through a typical session so that our viewers can understand, maybe they've never heard of somebody like you that can be out there to help them.
That's a great question. So in a session, what I actually do, because I believe that 90% of our trauma is emotional, or physical ailments come from emotional trauma. So I actually sit down and I actually take all of their medical ailments, so physical pain, any diagnoses that they've had medically, and I actually after the session we can actually link all of those physical ailments to a prior emotional event or trauma. So I first take that. Then I'm.
And that could go back to their childhood.
It can even go back to the womb and generational stuff.
Generational stuff.
Right, because we're born with addiction and abuse and emotions and ailments. So that emotions follow in generational, just like anything else does. So I do applied kinesiology. So I do muscle testing. I use 3 or 4 different healing modalities to figure out what's going on with them. So the first thing I do is I see most of us will have a block. You know, something we think that's really protecting us and kind of keeping the bad guys out.
Right, right.
But really, it's keeping even the good guys out. So
Right.
it's keeping us from really feeling loved.
Like nobody, you're not letting anybody in.
Anybody in. It can stop abundance, it can stop
Yeah.
unconditional love, acceptance. And we have a wound, or that big wound or a block, it's kind of keeping everything at bay. So the first thing I do is see if they have one. Well, over 90% of us do. And if they do, my job is to first lower that.
Now, sorry.
It's okay.
How do you see it? Like, I mean, is it through conversation? You're talking to the person?
It's through energy. So I can, through our subconscious mind, know that everything that's ever happened to us. It knows everything we've ever seen, smelled, tasted it. Even though we can't consciously remember, our subconscious knows everything about us.
So are you doing hypnosis?
No, I don't do any hypnosis.
Okay.
I actually do applied kinesiology. I'm also very intuitive, and I muscle test for if they have, their body will tell me what is going on, who caused it, what age, and then so my job is to energetically get rid of the trauma. So I actually remove the energy of that event, and they will feel it in that moment, but then they don't typically feel it again.
Wow.
So it's just moving the energy of the trauma. So I first lower that wall, that block that they have.
Okay, so getting through, you're working with a woman, in this case, it could be a teen, whatever, but
Right.
you're working with a woman, and you're without her even telling you what happened, you're able to sense what happened?
I'm able to muscle test, so applied kinesiology, chiropractors, kinesiologists will use that. I use one of that to be able to speak to their subconscious and say, okay,
Okay, try it on me.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so for example, and I can muscle test just by rubbing my fingers. I know
But
it
wait,
seems a little
if you
odd.
come across something really
Personal?
like personal and
I won't say
revealing,
it on camera.
yeah, don't say it on
Okay,
camera.
I would never do that. I respect privacy very much. Okay, so
All right.
muscle testing, I can just tell you if you have one, and then what age, who caused it, if you have one.
Okay.
Do you have a block? We'll start there. You want to
Sounds
start
good.
there? Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I should plan on this today.
I'm pretty sure nothing really traumatic has ever happened in my life that I've blocked out. But
it doesn't even have to be
some.
something you've blocked out, and it doesn't have to be anything. It could be something really small. Like you could have got lost in the mall at 2, and that fear could have stayed with you, or that trauma.
Yeah, that does happen.
Right?
Actually, I do know that happened.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
So,
I was the kid that if my mom took her hand away,
you were running.
I loved elevators and escalators.
Right.
Particularly escalators I liked because I could see where I was going up and down.
Right.
Elevators were a little bit spooky because all of a sudden they opened up and you didn't know where the heck you were.
Right.
As a kid.
And you just push
And
the buttons.
just push the buttons. It's kind of fun, but I would get lost, and then that was
Right.
terrible. So
Yes.
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so energetically, I'm just going to muscle. So I'm going to first make sure I have permission to work on you. Do I have permission
Yes,
to
you
work
have
on
permission
Okay.
to work on.
Okay, so I'm going to see if you, first of all, if you have a block or a heart wall that we're looking for.
Should I be closing my eyes?
Nope,
or?
you don't
Okay,
have to do anything.
just be
I
quiet.
do all the work.
Just be quiet so I don't
You can
interrupt
nod
you.
if I, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you do have one. So I'm going to ask if it came when you were in the womb or it came after you were born.
And how would I know the answer to that question?
I do. So it came
Oh.
after you were born.
Okay.
I'm just asking.
Sorry.
I'm just letting you know what
Okay.
what I'm muscle testing
Got it.
for.
Okay.
Okay. Came after you're born. So and how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I told you. No. I'm 48.
Okay. So you're 48. So I'm going to just kind of break down what age group it came and then kind of narrow it down for you.
Okay.
Okay. So 1 to 10. It did not come before age 10. So yours came older in life. So yours was like in the 30 to 40 age break. You had something happen to you in that age. I'll be able to tell you like what age and maybe who caused it and what emotion, we can break it down. But that something happened, okay, 30 to 35. So about 36, something happened to you on an emotional level. Well, I'll tell you if it was emotional or physical.
Okay.
So it's emotional. So as I'm saying it's physical, so I don't know if somebody physically left or you had a physical ailment or an accident or something, but let me see. I can ask more. So was it physical? Did you have some kind of an accident or something happen to you in that age bracket? Car accident, some kind of trauma?
And 36 years old?
36-ish, right around there.
36-ish? So that's 10,
Fall, break a
11,
bone.
12 years ago? Gosh, I can't think of any accident that I had at that
Okay.
point.
Any major breakups emotionally?
Let's see,
Someone
36.
pass on?
Let's see, 36 would have been, oh, you know what? at 36, that was the first time, I'm pretty positive it was 36. I believe that was the first time that my wife and I split up.
There you go. So there was a separation, a physical separation?
Yep, I was gone for 3 days.
Okay.
Right? I was gone for 3 days, and after the third day, I realized that I couldn't, I knew that things weren't right with my wife and I,
Right.
and I knew it for years, right?
Yeah.
She's a lovely woman, but I just knew things were not right between us.
Are you not currently
No, we're
married?
not together.
Okay.
But I was gone for 3 days, and I couldn't bear to be without my son.
Right, that's a hard one.
My son was 4 years old, and I couldn't bear. Maybe he was 5, but I just couldn't bear to be without him. Like, I didn't like to think of some other man raising my
Right.
son,
Right.
you know, or him just being
So it
raised.
could have been
with some-
physically removed from your son. There was a physical, so something was a separation or a physical removal, and that was at 36. So
Yeah.
that's where your biggest trauma probably came, and that's where your wall went up, and you said, "Oh my gosh, that's hard." So that stays with us. So in a session, I would kind of remove that energy of that event, kind of maybe taking you back, but removing the energy of it, so that when you thought about it again, it wouldn't cause you any emotional pain or physiological response to your body.
Okay.
Okay, so when we have a traumatic event, our body goes into fight or flight mode.
Right. Right.
And so we don't want to have that keep reoccurring every time we talk about it or think about it. We want to be able to think back and say, oh, that happened to me.
And you learn from
and
it.
you learned from it, but I don't have the pain anymore. I get to keep the gifts or the teachings that it taught me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be the first part of the session, is I first
Okay.
kind of get rid of that wall. Because if the wall's up, nothing else gets in or out.
Right.
Once we get that wall lowered, then I muscle test for what emotions you're holding on to. So let's say there's abandonment or any kind of self-sabotage, depression, any kind of, it'll just tell me, because I have a whole chart I work off of. And it says, this is the emotion, this is who caused it, this is when it came, and then I get rid of the trauma of all the emotions. And that's all subconscious, so it's stuff you may not remember.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have abuse in the womb. Some people have abuse
That,
at 1 or 2
that
or 3.
always, that always, like, you know, when somebody says, like, they had abuse in the womb or something happened, you know, when they were in the womb, you know?
Right.
That's always, like, you know,
I can share mine with you. It's pretty severe.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, well, what kind of abuse would somebody have in the womb other than, like, somebody got punched,
Right.
you know? But
My mom was physically abused in the womb, and I almost died. Somebody told me after, in my early 40s, I think, that you had abuse in the womb and this was the emotion. And I knew about the physical, but I didn't know
Yeah.
that was my block. That was my personal
Right.
thing. And I used to not be able to talk about that without getting emotional or feeling. And I was like, oh, that's unfortunate that happened to me in the womb. So I had to come out and deal with all those emotions outside of the womb.
Well, for our viewers, tell us.
It's pretty
it's
personal.
interesting. Yeah, I know it's interesting. So right now we've gone through a session on
Part
the
of the
spot.
session,
Yeah,
right.
part of
Yeah.
the session on the spot. She had no idea that I was going to ask her to do that. So for our viewers, what type of kind of give us, without mentioning any names, obviously. But give us a scenario of somebody that you worked with, and I know we only have a few minutes left.
Right.
But give us a scenario of somebody that you worked with that, and where did they end up? Like why did they come see you?
Okay.
And
Good
then
question.
how is it now that they've had this session with you? Because I want to offer people out there hope.
Yes,
You know, that they can
absolutely.
find people like you. Maybe they're not in Southern California.
Right.
And do you have a website?
I do. I do have a website.
So what's your website?
It's ultimate-serenity.com.
Okay, and we'll probably have that screening on the
Yes,
on the camera as
absolutely.
well.
And I do phone work as well. So
Phone work?
Energy has no time or space, so I can
Okay.
do stuff over the phone if
Wow.
necessary. Yes.
Cool. Okay, that's awesome. So go ahead and let us know about a case, somebody that you've
Okay.
worked with.
So I had a gal recently come in, and I guess I can share her story. I'm not going to share her name. And she's a beautiful woman. And when she was a teenager, her eyes, she had big, beautiful blue eyes. And at that time, the movie E.T. had come out. And people kept calling her E.T. And she sunk so low all the way through middle school and high school that
But her
she...
neck wasn't nearly that long.
No, and she's a
okay.
beautiful woman. But she literally, when she came in for a session, we got rid of a lot of stuff, but that ended up being the first emotional, huge trauma that has held her back and has kept her maybe in unhealthy relationships, not feeling good enough, having very low self-esteem, all kinds of issues, because that original trauma that she just felt like she had to hide and not be seen and maybe didn't have a voice, and kind of just kept taking the abuse. And her parents weren't very supportive. They didn't know how to support her. They didn't know, and it's a tough situation. I know I have a child who's grown now as well, but do you go to school? Do you talk to the kids? What do you do? Bullying is a tough situation, right, for everybody. The parents, the teachers, the student, the principal. It's a tough. How much do you get involved, and at what point?
Well, how did this girl find out about you?
She was actually found me on Facebook. A friend of hers referred her to me for some holistic things that she needed, and she came in and we met. And then she says, "Oh gosh, I need to come in for a session." And she just came in recently, and now she's bringing her children in. So
wow.
Yeah.
So you were able to work with her and help her get past that, so she doesn't have the ET syndrome anymore.
Exactly.
And that's one thing. And that's possibly one of several things that she's dealing with, but you helped her get rid of that one.
Right, and the most common response I have from people after they come in is, "I'm not hurting anymore, and I just feel peace." And some people have never experienced peace in their life. Some people are born not feeling peaceful or being in fear. And those are the two biggest things I get. I just feel calm. I don't feel like that dark, heavy cloud is following me. I just feel peaceful. And when I think of that loss or that grief, I feel love.
There's so many people out there that are suffering, and they don't know that peace yet.
They've never experienced
They
don't know what it's like not to have
fear. They don't know what they're missing.
Right, and they have it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much."
Now, one last thing before we go, and that is that we talked about this a little bit when we were just getting to know each other, is that Lisa's dealing with energy, and she's able to kind of figure things out, just by talking and being in the presence, and I've been on the phone with somebody, and we're mentioning that we're both Christians.
Absolutely.
And I've talked to some people when they start hearing somebody talking about being able to pick up on some sort of
energy
feelings.
Everything's energy, right? Everything's energy.
I've had some people say, well, only God can do this, and if you're doing energy work, then that's like witchcraft, or some kind of stuff like that.
That's a great question.
So, do you ever have you ever had any issue like that where somebody finds that I can't talk to you because I'm Christian, and whatever you're doing is voodoo, and
yes, and I can actually show them scripture in the Bible where Jesus talks about energy, and Jesus was the best healer.
Yeah, but you're not Jesus, girlfriend.
No, I'm not. But but God gave us all many gifts.
Yes.
And so I believe that God put some of us here to help and assist. I believe we're all put here to help and love one another, and we all have a different gift. And my gift is being able. I'm not God. He's just using me as the vessel.
Thank
you.
I'm
doing His work. I'm connected to Him. He's helping me assist you, and that's really all that is. I don't take any of the credit personally.
Lisa, that's a wonderful attitude, and one other thing I want to add to that is that, in my belief, is that God sends a vessel out to those that are asking for help.
Right.
You could be that one of those vessels.
Absolutely.
And if somebody says, no, God's going to help me, and it's like, God's like, geez, I just sent you.
I sent you the vessel.
I sent you the vessel.
You shut the door.
Yeah.
It happens every
You rocked
day.
the boat and dumped it out,
Right.
So,
but I honor everybody. I have clients that are Christians, clients that are Muslims. I don't judge. It's not my job to judge. It's my job to help and love them.
Help. So there you have it, folks. If you know of anybody that is dealing with issues that it could be on a subconscious level, things that they haven't been able to face, there's certain walls that most of us that have dealt with bullying issues. I myself, when I was a kid, and I was close to suicide, and just terrible times. But there's hope out there.
Right.
There's hope. There's people like Lisa out there, all over the world that are dealing with the energy and helping, and that's all we really want, right?
Right. We all just want to be happy and feel good.
Just be happy and feel good, and that's what Tako Talk is all about.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great.